establishment of a free trade zone within what's called the Eurasian Customs Union, which actually includes Russia, Russia, and Belarus and Kazakhstan. So I guess that's good. And another project is the Russian industrial zone.
The Suez Canal?
Yes, the corridor of the Suez Canal, plus of course tourism. The Russian president referred to almost 50% increase of the number of Russian tourists to Egypt compared to their number in 2013. And he also spoke about the increase in trade. He said that the trade reached now $4.5 billion US dollars. So I guess economically speaking, things are very good. And I think that yesterday we signed an agreement on investment and on not only investment and gas and cooperation in gas.
Yes.
And he said also that or one of the ministers, Egyptian ministers, said that Egypt is receiving has received 4 million tons of wheat from Russia. So Russia is helping us in the fields of energy and in energy and in wheat, and that's very should be very reassuring for us.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, the visit that came yesterday or during the past 2 days between the Egyptian president and the Russian president was not just considered ordinary because they are non-ordinary people. We're talking about 2 strong leaders who have great impact, and working together would really be able to convey a message to whether it's the terrorists who are trying to interfere in Egypt's internal affairs and cause instability and insecurity within the country, or in particular, I would be very clear when I ask you about what do you think is the direct message that was sent to the United States through not just the visit, but the outcome of the visit, through whether it is the signing of the agreements or the decision that was taken to build the first nuclear power plant in Egypt, or the strengthening of the economic ties between both countries, taking into consideration the policy the United States has towards Egypt, regardless of what they are saying officially, and the policy the United States taking towards Russia at this critical time because of the Ukrainian crisis as well.
To begin with, I don't think, I doubt very much if when both the Egyptian and the Russian presidents were discussing the major regional questions or Russian-Egyptian relations, they were concerned about American reaction, because both Russia and Egypt are 2 independent and sovereign countries, and they are free to conduct their relations the way they deem necessary, important, vital for their interests. The second thing is that when you compare American and Russian positions toward post-June Egypt, of course you will detect major difference between the two countries, the 2 major powers. On the one hand, Russia does consider the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, and the United States does not. And as a matter of fact, last month they received some representatives of this group, which we consider from a legal point of view a terrorist organization. They received the representatives of this organization in Washington. And the American president the other day had a meeting, a closed meeting, with some what they call Muslim leaders or leaders of the Muslim community in the United States. and it later on we found out that one of those leaders is a member in the Muslim Brotherhood. As a matter of fact, the founder of the branch of the Muslim Brotherhood branch in the United States from 1981. So from an Egyptian perspective and in the context of our fight against terrorism, of course, we welcome the support given to us by Russia in this respect. And speaking of which, during the negotiations yesterday, there was complete agreement between the two sides on fighting terrorism, and there is no denying that they know what they are talking about. When the United States speaks about terrorism, we have to scratch our head to try to find out what's the American definition of terrorism in our part of the world, and also we will ask ourselves the questions: how come from 2012 till the second half of 2014, Western powers, including the United States, were aware that some regional powers, some Arab countries, were arming and were supporting financially and politically Al-Qaeda affiliated groups in Syria. And one of those groups turned out to be Daesh later on.
Oh, you mean Al-Qaeda that originally the United States established and that it is also financing?
Of course, I was speaking about the period from the 2012 till the second half of 2014. So in the context of course, of our discussion on we are closer to the Russian definition of terrorism than to the American. I don't think that the Americans have a watertight definition of terrorism.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm going to interrupt you. Why do you think, in your opinion, there is this different ideas or definitions of terrorism between Russia and the United States? Does Israel here play a role? I mean, the protection of Israel in the region, would it benefit the United States more than it would Russia, for instance?
Well, I guess as far as this point is concerned, it all depends on what we can call the political instrumentalization of terrorist groups or extremist groups. When you go over, when you review the statements issued by the State Department or the White House, or if you read American papers and Western papers, as a matter of fact, they keep talking about jihadists, extremists,
Islam in general,
but they never talk about terrorists.
Yes.
You rarely come across the word terrorists.
You don't actually.
Well, in very few cases you come across the word terrorist. They call them jihadists. So when you call someone who kills others as a jihadist, you are to a certain extent, whether knowingly or unintentionally, that beside the point. You are romanticizing him. If you utilize this word and you keep utilizing it, so then you ask your question: if
and
he
it's
is
affiliated to Islam at the end, because there is no other religion that has
jihadist,
Islam.
definitely. So the point that I would like to make is that as far as the position vis-a-vis fighting terrorism is concerned, I guess there is a complete identity of views between Moscow and Cairo, unlike the situation between Cairo and Washington. So I would say that the results of Mr. Putin's visit to Cairo are very good, and I hope that we will work on implementing the 3 agreements that were signed yesterday, particularly the one concerning the establishment of the first nuclear power plant in Egypt, because really, personally speaking, I guess that would be key for the future prosperity of Egypt. And I would call it the second, this is the Aswan Dam project of the first half of the 21st century.
Mr. Ambassador, as you have kindly mentioned that both Egypt and Russia are having some common understanding for the definition of the terrorism. From your point of view, to what extent we can cooperate those countries in order to fight the increasing terrorism in the region?
Well, personally, I hesitate a lot to speak about security-related related matters publicly, but let me, to answer your question in shorthand, I guess cooperation with Russia in this field would yield us many benefits, particularly in the fields of intelligence and tracking terrorists across the Middle East, not only in Sinai, but also in Libya. Yes. Because as far as Egypt is concerned and fighting terrorism, I guess the situation in Libya could be very destabilizing for our security in the foreseeable future. Let's hope that the talks that the United Nations have been conducting, have been organizing, would prove successful, and Libya would return to a situation more or less, to a normal situation more or less. But anyhow, cooperating with Russia in fighting terrorism is very advantageous from an Egyptian point of view, without entering into specifics.
Yes, of course. Mr. Ambassador, I'm sure that there's no doubt that the situation in Syria also topped the agenda of both leaders' talks, and it is also very clear on the Russian position when it comes to supporting the Assad regime and bases of the Russian bases in Syria and so forth. Can you tell us about what do you believe, in your opinion, were the points of understanding or agreeing by both sides on